everybody, and welcome back to Buckeye Politics. It's me, your favorite Ohioan. So today we're going to be doing my 2022 Senate prediction as of today, July 1st, 2022. Um, let's get right into it, honestly, not much to say there. We're going to start by filling in the safe Republican and Democratic states for each side. These are the states that are going to vote by more than 10 percentage points for the Republicans or Democrats, basically no matter what you do. Safe Republican states include the states of Idaho, Utah, North Dakota, South Dakota, Kansas, Missouri, both of Oklahoma's Senate races. Obviously, there was a special election as well. Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, South Carolina, Kentucky, Indiana, Alaska, and Iowa, as well as the state of Florida. So these are all the safe Republican states. Alaska, even Kelly Shibaka is hopefully going to primary out and defeat Lisa Murkowski. Even if she doesn't, the race is safe R. No matter what happens there, the race is going to be safe Republican. It's just will we have a good Republican or a bad Republican? Iowa, Chuck Grassley always wins by huge margins. He's very well liked. Their man's like 90 years old, but he's a farmer and he always spends basically if he's not in D.C., he's spending time with the voters in the state. He's absolutely beloved there. He'll win by like 20, 30 points. The state of Florida, Marco Rubio, he won by 8 points back in 2016. I see no reason he can't do 2 points better in a red wave year in a red trending state like Florida and get over 10 percentage points. That's from the safe Democrat states. They now include states of Oregon, California, Hawaii, Maryland, Connecticut, Vermont, New York, and probably Illinois. Illinois might be interesting. The Republicans do have a decent candidate. The candidate they have is very popular in the Illinois suburbs, and with being on the ballot with Darren Bailey might help her in southern Illinois. Obviously, Darren Bailey is running for the governor election, but the two might maybe help carry each other across the finish line. With Bailey doing better in the southern areas and the Republican nominee for Senate doing better in the Chicago suburbs and kind of helping turn out voters for each other. Will that happen? I don't know. It's too early to tell. Right now, I think that in the end, the state does go to Tammy Duckworth by about 11 or 12 points. So certainly a competitive race, but not under 10. So it's still categorized as a safe Democratic state. Let's fill in the likely states for each side. The likely Republican states include the states of Wisconsin, Ohio, and North Carolina. The state of Wisconsin, Ron Johnson, the incumbent senator there, he is very popular in the state. He'll win handily. The Democrats don't really have a candidate. Mandela Barnes is a tax evader, anti-white racist who's not going to win. I'm sorry, he's not going to win. There is one candidate, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he's not the worst in the world. He might make it interesting, but even then, I think Ron Johnson, with the national environment in a red trending state like Wisconsin, with a good senator like Ron Johnson has defeated Russ Feingold, who is like the daddy boy of Wisconsin Democrats twice, and once in a presidential election year in a pretty much an even ballot. So I see zero reason Ron Johnson should not win a-re-election against some crappy no-name BLM activist in Wisconsin. So Johnson will win by 5 to 6 points. Depending on the candidate, if it's a Mandela Barnes, it'll be like 5 to 6 points. Any other candidate, it'll probably still be 5 to 6 points. It'll be just over the likely margin. If the Democrats get their act together, it may go down to like a lean, like Johnson plus 3 or 4. But I think as of now, it's going to be more like Johnson plus 5, Johnson plus 6. My great home state of Ohio, J.D. Vance is going by 8 to 9 points, just under 10. The only reason it's not safe is because Tim Ryan is running a very solid campaign. He's focusing on those kitchen table issues. He's saying J.D. Vance wants to defund the police because J.D. Vance said we should have police reform. And Tim Ryan has literally called the judicial system racist and supports BLM. So he's not running a bad campaign for Ohio, but I just think that the national environment, J.D. Vance is a great candidate for the state. And with the national environment, and once J.D. Vance kind of gets his act together, he's going to win by likely the safe margin. The polls already show, even in Tim Ryan's own models, basically have the race tied in a dead heat. So, and all the non-biased polls have Vance up by like 4 or 5 now, and that's with Tim Ryan cranking out ads, cranking out attacks. So Vance is fine. He'll win by a likely margin. Instead of North Carolina, Ted Budd's going to win there relatively handily. I actually, for the longest time, had North Carolina as like a lean-R state. I think I'll go Republican, but not by a huge margin. But Ted Budd is running a solid campaign, and his opponent, Sherry Beasley, is just abysmal. She's just collapsing in the polling. Normally all the polls favor Democrats around now, but even then she's only leading in 1 or 2. All the other polls have Sherry Beasley getting destroyed by 5, 6, 7, even 8 9 points in some. So Ted Budd's going to win by like 5, 6, 7 points, possibly more. But I think as of now, similar margin to Wisconsin, I think Ted Budd wins by like 6 points or so. The likely states that I've filled in now, for those of you who do not know, are states that will go to the Republicans, and eventually, once I fill in the Democrat states, the Democrats by between 5 and 10 percentage points. And the Democrats only have one likely state, and then the state of Colorado. Colorado is going to be likely D. Not much to say there. Republicans have a good candidate in Joe O'Dea. He's a lot more moderate than I would like to see, and I'm kind of worried that him being so moderate is not going to turn out the base. But at the same time, I think he'll do okay. I think national environment will be interesting, but in the end, I think he should manage to pull it out. National environment's really the only thing that's going to help him. He's not the worst candidate we could have nominated, but he's not great either. And no matter who we get in there, yeah, not much to say about that. It's going to be likely D, Colorado. These are all the likely states. So now we're filling the lean states, which are states that will vote Republican or Democrat by between 1 and 5 percentage points. And we're going to start in the state of Georgia. That's going to lean to the Republicans. Herschel Walker. I've been saying that this race is not going to be a walk in the park. A lot of people have been saying, like, oh, Walker's going by like a likely margin. No, he's not. Raphael Warnock is not disliked in the state of Georgia for some reason because he's voting like he's from Vermont, but he's actually from Georgia. But yeah, Raphael Warnock is not going to. He's not going to win re-election, but he's going to be in a tough fight. And Herschel Walker's really shooting himself in the foot right now. He had that whole scandal about his like sons or whatever that he apparently fathered a son when he was in college, and that like he just got leaked now, which of course it did when he's running for Senate, not like any other time. You know, deep state moment. Anyway. Yeah, Herschel Walker, his campaign keeps shooting himself in the foot, but then again, he is still at least running a decent campaign. It's really just his personal stuff is getting attacked full on by the media and Raphael Warnock. But once Herschel Walker gets his campaign together, and once he really starts attacking Raphael Warnock himself, because Raphael Warnock is by no means a good candidate. He has some skeletons in his closet. He's no angel either. So once if Herschel Walker actually starts going on the offense, and the economy keeps getting bad, national environment keeps getting better. If Brian Kemp can turn out moderate Republicans, I see no reason Herschel Walker can't win by a lean margin. It's going to be closer than a lot of people expect. I think Walker's only going to win by like 2 or 3 points, but still, he's going to win. The only other lean state for the Republicans is the state of Nevada, which is going to lean to Adam Laxalt. Adam Laxalt's a solid candidate. He's a great candidate, actually. And a D+8 environment in a blue wave in 2018, which was considered a D+8 environment. Huge blue wave year. He only lost by like 4 percentage points, which is incredible for a state like Nevada. Props to him. Adam Laxalt's a good candidate. Very popular in the state. And Catherine Cortez Masto, her campaign is just abysmal. Catherine Cortez Masto is kind of being smart by running. She is the Democratic incumbent senator. She's being smart by running on abortion. Because Nevada is a relatively pro-choice state for whatever reason. I think it's just because of the generic social liberalism that festers from Las Vegas being focused on prostitution and gambling. There's also kind of that like pro-choice lean as well. So Nevada is a relatively pro-choice state. Especially among like white suburbanites in the state. So Catherine Cortez Masto like running on abortion is not the worst idea in the world. But that said, it's been a week since the Supreme Court has had their ruling, and Republicans still lead in the generic ballot. They still basically very little has changed. I don't think it's going to have a huge effect. So if abortion did end up being a major player in the midterms, I think Catherine Cortez Masto's campaign her tactic might have paid off. But it's been a week. Basically, nothing has changed. So, yeah, Catherine Cortez Masto, she's going to lose by like 2, 3, maybe even 4 points, honestly. Laxalt's a good candidate. So, yeah, that's the state of Nevada. Now, there's only going to be one lean state here, and then instead of Washington. The Democrats only lean state is Washington, which is really only because Tiffany Smiley is a good candidate. Patty Murray is an incumbent Democrat senator. She's been in politics for like 30, 40 years. She's the definition of an establishment politician, which and she's only in a couple races in red wave years, such as 2010. The race has been relatively competitive, but no one really expected this. But Tiffany Smiley's run an incredible campaign, a very grassroots, and she's not running as like a generic Republican. She's running as a more populist, like she's not moderate. I don't want to say moderate because she's not even moderate. Like she's just running a good campaign, really. Because or especially for like Washington. She's focusing like farm issues and like farmers on more economic populist ideas that would usually do well in the Midwest. That we kind of like to focus on. But she's trying them out in Washington, and they're doing really well. A lot of farmers, even Democratic farmers, from what I'm seeing, and more liberal-leaning farmers. Washington farming is a pretty big industry there. People don't talk about it, but Washington, especially the western half of the state, is a pretty big farming area. Those people there, while they vote Republican, they don't vote overwhelmingly Republican. But Tiffany Smiley focusing on those issues like the economic populism and like subsidies for farming is really paying off there. And then she's doing well. What can I say? And on social issues, she's not moderate. If you look at her website, she's pro-life. She believes the 2020 election was stolen. She's she's by no means a moderate on social issues, but she is still solid. She's a good candidate, and Patty Murray is just not well liked, really. I mean, when you've been in Washington D.C. for 30, 40 years, it is very difficult to stay relevant, really, and just to stay liked among your constituents. You either people who stay in D.C. for a very long time either end up being local legends like Chuck Grassley in Iowa, or they end up being hated and yeah, like Mitch McConnell in Kentucky. So really, it's Patty Murray's been in D.C. for a very long time. Who's a fresh new candidate that brings something new to the table, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. Polls have the race relatively competitive, actually. Democratic leading pollsters have Patty Murray up by about 10 points. When you have a Democratic internal poll, you usually add about 3 points to the Republican side, so that means that Patty Murray is currently leading Tiffany Smiley by about 7 points or so. Keep in mind this is a state that voted for for Joe Biden by almost 20 points, so only being up by 7 really isn't that good. And then there was recently a Republican poll that came out that had Tiffany Smiley only losing by like 4 or 5. Add 3 points, it's like Patty Murray plus 7 or 8. So really, I say Patty Murray is currently leading by about 7, 8 points here. But then again, we still have the primary to go. We still have a long way. I think Tiffany Smiley, if she's lucky, she might get under 5. I think as of now she will. I think as of now, Patty Murray hangs on by about 4 points or so. Pretty competitive race, actually. But I think in the end, Patty Murray hangs on. This brings us to the final 3 states, which include states of Arizona, Pennsylvania, and New Hampshire, which I think all will tilt the Republican Party. Tilt states are all states that go that vote one way by less than 1 percentage point. This means these are going to be razor thin, but I think the Republican Party will act them out. Some of these are subject to change. The state of Arizona, Blake Masters is more likely than not going to be the Republican nominee. He's worked with Peter Thiel. He's good friends with J.D. Vance. He's a solid candidate. He's going to focus on inflation and the border, which is an underrated topic that if you look at polls, a lot of people in Arizona care about. So I think that'll help him there. But then again, Mark Kelly is a solid incumbent. He's by no means the moderate he said he was going to be, but he can run on that. Mark Kelly's an astronaut. Mark Kelly's like kind of a national hero when you think about it. He's like the man who spent the longest amount of time in space. So he is a relatively popular senator. He is going to run as a moderate, but I think the Republicans and Blake Masters will do a good job of showing that he is not a moderate. He's voted for gun control. He's voted for all this stuff. And he's not a moderate like he says he is. I think the race is going to be closer than people expect. A lot of people on the right think that like Mark Kelly is basically dead in arrival, which he's not. But I think he's pretty close. If Masters just runs a decent campaign, which he is, I think he wins by about 0.9, by about a point or so. I'm just not sure if it's going to be more than a point or less than a point. But Masters should win by about a point or so. I only really have it tilt. I don't know why I have it tilted. It's going to be like 1 point. So really, is it going to be like over a point or less than a point? But yeah, Masters is going to win, and all the polls show Masters getting absolutely crushed. That's just because Blake Masters has no like name recognition. Mark Kelly is a national hero who's lived in Arizona for a long time, and he's the incumbent senator. Blake Masters is some just random guy who's running for Senate. So that's really the only reason Kelly's up by like 10 points. Pennsylvania. Dr. Oz is going to win there by a tilt margin. If you look at the polls, all the polls have Fetterman up by over Oz by a solid margin. But if you actually look at anything besides the numbers and Wikipedia, like I do, like if you actually look at the polls who were conducted and you look at the samples, all the polls have a Democrat favorable sample. So all the polls, for example, one of them has Democrats at like 45. Of the people surveyed, 45% identified as Democrats, 42% identified as Republicans. That suggests a D+3 environment. We're looking at an R+6 environment. Tilt that on its head and double it and for the Republicans, and that is the environment we're looking at. So, and then the other thing I want to point out is that Dr. Oz, if you look at Dr. Oz's approval rating, among Republicans, Dr. Oz's approval rating is only about 53%. Only 53% of registered Republicans approve of Dr. Oz. John Fetterman, among Democrats, has an 80% approval rating. No wonder Oz is gonna be down. Oh, what a shocker there. Once Oz really starts getting more conservative endorsements, he starts running his campaign a little more, he turns out the base, he will win. He's just fine. He'll win. The only reason Oz is losing badly in polls right now is because they oversampled the Democrats. They already sampled more Democrats than they do Republicans, and Oz is only approved of by 53% of Republicans. You see, the national environment helps Oz out a bunch. If more Republicans just turn out and Oz improves his image with registered Republicans, he's gonna be just fine. He's gonna win handily. Don't worry about it. Pennsylvania is just fine. The state of New Hampshire, the last state we want to look at, it really depends on who the candidate is in New Hampshire. Maggie Hassan, the incumbent Democrat senator, is by no means popular, but she's also not unpopular. We really just need a decent candidate, and we can make the race competitive. And we have the two main candidates. One of them is Chuck Morse. Chuck Morse is very socially conservative, but he's very economically libertarian. Like, he's all for, like, small government, small taxes, free market, stuff like that. But social issues like abortion, gay marriage, even weed to an extent, he's very socially conservative. Meanwhile, we have Don Bolduc, who is basically just a Q boomer. Like, Don Bolduc's not the worst candidate, but literally all Don Bolduc talks about is the 2020 election, which is not going to bode well for him there. Chuck Morse was a solid and relatively well-liked Senate Majority Leader of this New Hampshire State Senate. He's running a good campaign, and polls seem to show the race tilting in Morse's favor for the primary. Bolduc had a huge lead early on, but Chuck Morse is kind of campaigning a little bit more, and it looks like Chuck Morse has a solid chance of being the nominee. If Chuck Morse is the Republicans' nominee, I think he wins by a very slim margin over Maggie Hassan. Like I said, Morse is good on economics. He'll get libertarians on his side and social conservative as well. New Hampshire is a relatively socially conservative state in terms of at least parts of it all. Parts of New Hampshire are, like some of the suburbs and some of the like rural areas, are actually very socially conservative. So if Chuck Morse can just turn out those people, do decently with suburbanites and libertarians, then he'll win handily. Not handily, he'll win by about a point or so, just less than a point. Because Maggie Hassan, well, she's not well-liked, she's also not disliked. Don Bolduc, though, he would lose by about a tilt margin. So no matter what, New Hampshire is definitely going to be one of, if not the closest races this cycle, but I think we have a good candidate that can win there. So with that, this is the 2022 Senate prediction as of July 1st, 2022. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe for more.